Is there a future for the UKIP party? I'm joined now by Richard Braine, who lost his seat as an MEP. Richard, these results must have hurt you.
Thanks for having me on, Dan. Can I just correct you? I've never been an MEP. I was a candidate in this
That's
election,
right, sorry, and you weren't elected.
I didn't lose a seat. So, sorry, just to correct you there.
So this is a disastrous night for UKIP, Richard.
Well, it's the polls were predicting more or less. I think we actually possibly did slightly better than the polls, and this has come from several years of us scoring less than we used to in the old days. But the main reason for that is that we've got all the other parties, and most of the other parties, at least to claim that they're actually going to deliver Brexit. So it's really a measure of the success that UKIP's had with its number one policy. And here we have a party that's actually named after our number one policy, actually winning and acing this election. So in some ways, we're pleased that the Brexit Party has done so well. We hope that will encourage this terrible Tory government to actually deliver Brexit now, because it's wasted 3 years of everybody's time and an enormous amount of money not delivering UKIP's policy that we've campaigned for 27 years.
But surely this election, if anything, though, is reason for UKIP to give up the game. Don't you think it's about time for the party to think about folding?
No, UKIP will carry on campaigning for real Brexit until it is really delivered. We've campaigned for 27 years. There's no reason to stop. And one thing that has been shown in this election is that the parties that are trying to stop Brexit, obviously Labour and the Tories, they've been punished very, very heavily. And so the answer is that if they want to survive, I mean, the Tories got 8.7%. I think it's their lowest result ever. And if they want to survive as a party, they're actually going to have to completely change tack and really deliver the proper Brexit that we all want and have been campaigning for. In terms of
Richard, I have to be honest, though, no one has suffered worse than UKIP in these elections. The Conservatives slumped 14.8%. but UKIP slumped 24.2%. You were the biggest losers out of this election. There's no other way to cut it.
Yeah, I mean, that may be so, but don't forget that UKIP has survived on a very small share of the electorate for 27 years. I mean, we started to do well in 2010 and onwards, and that's how we delivered the referendum. And the time may come again when people will say, oh, they're needed again. So we really are the guard dogs of delivering Brexit. The Brexit Party may achieve it. We don't know. They're a brand new thing. They don't have a manifesto. We'll find out in the coming months and year whether they actually are able to force our parliament to properly deliver Brexit. But if they don't, UKIP will still be there, the original Brexit Party, and we will go on campaigning for it until it is delivered.
Richard, isn't the problem that the public turned on you because you became a party of extremists and a party pretty close to racism?
No, I haven't met a single extremist in UKIP. I've met a lot of UKIP members and voters. I've never met an extremist that supported the party. There's nothing racist. We're an entirely non-racist party. The press
you support Tommy Robinson, don't you?
Well, Tommy Robinson, first of all, isn't an extremist.
What?
Tommy Robinson is not an extremist.
I feel like the vast majority of the country would disagree with you there. How on earth can you say Tommy Robinson is not an extremist?
Well, I think if the vast
and if
majority
he's
of the
not
country,
an extremist, why is he banned from joining your party?
If the country doesn't agree with me, then and thinks he is an extremist, then I recommend that they actually find out a bit more about him.
Well, he's banned from joining your party because he's so extreme.
Well, that's not actually the reason. The reason why he's banned is because we have a blanket ban on a range of organisations from which people can't come join. If they've ever been a member, can't join us, including the BNP, for example. But in fact, he's banned because he actually was in the BNP for a very short time. He left it because he didn't like the racists, as I understand it. He's not a racist and he's not an extremist, and so but he's banned for technical reasons and he's unable to join UKIP. So that's the situation.
Also,
but
Richard,
I don't accept that he's an extremist at all. I think that's the press just smearing him because he spoke out about the grooming gangs and the mass rape of children.
Richard, you also defended Carl Benjamin's rape joke to Jess Phillips, saying there was no reason to condemn him. Do you stand by that?
I said it was a bad taste joke. I think it is a bad taste joke. But don't forget, Jess Phillips herself has made much worse jokes. I mean, Jess Phillips made a joke about the 1,000 or so victims of the Cologne attacks being like a night out in Birmingham. And that's where you have actual victims of a proper historic event, of victims of sexual assault. So I think Jess Phillips' joke there is actually far more in worse taste and more sensitive and more insulting than Carl Benjamin's joke. So I think the point is have some perspective on this. It was 3 years ago. It was one joke. He's actually published thousands of hours of very moderate, sensible, intelligent discourse about politics. For some reason, the media thinks it's important to fixate on one thing that he said 3 years ago as an effort just to smear him. And it's just smear tactics. Yeah. And then you're doing it now. And I think, your listeners deserve better, frankly.
Well, Richard, I think this should be a wake-up call to you, because I don't think you can keep blaming the media. If you're going to encourage these extreme types of positions, you have seen that the British public will turn against you.
Oh, don't worry. If the media lies, I will go on calling it out and blaming the media. If the media does a good job, I'll give praise. So don't worry about that. Nothing is going to stop me blaming media when it does a terrible job. Why should I? This is a free country and it's free speech. If the media tries to smear people, I'll say that they're trying to smear people.
But isn't the issue the extremists in your own party?
As I've already said, we don't have any.
Well, why on earth would Gerard Batten want Tommy Robinson to be one of his advisors?
Because Tommy Robinson actually has considerable knowledge about the abuse of rape gangs and the tens of thousands of children that have been betrayed in this country by our social services, police and establishment and politicians. And he's actually very knowledgeable about those things. So he's someone that's actually worth talking to. And I advise people to go and look online and find out more about it. But when it comes to you're asking these questions about why UKIP's supposed to be extreme, all this sort of stuff. You're actually being misled by the press yourself, and that's why you think that I belong to an extremist party when I don't, and I've never met an extremist in the party. But you're being misled by the press.
Well, I'm not. I'm not being misled at all. I'm not being misled at all, Richard. I'll tell you why. Number one, I'm executive editor of The Sun. That's my full-time job. Number two, I've had Gerard Batten on this show on a regular basis because I want to give people a voice from all ends of the political spectrum. But I'm sorry, what I have seen from UKIP during this campaign is extreme. For you to say that Tommy Robinson is not an extremist. Well, I've just given you two. The fact that Tommy Robinson is an example, and the fact that you have defended a candidate who makes a rape joke about Jess Phillips. You're making false accusations.
There hasn't been any extremism from UKIP during this campaign. You've just claimed it. It's false. It's a smear. And that's what you do.
Well, let me ask you this, Richard. Let me ask you this. Is it not about time to accept that UKIP without Nigel Farage does not exist? You were reliant on one man, and as soon as he left, your public polling collapsed.
Well, I don't really think that's true. UKIP achieved a lot, and don't forget it took an awful lot of UKIP people to put Mr. Nigel Farage where he got to in the European Parliament. A lot of hard work by a lot of people, leafleting, going out and campaigning and making the case, including very large numbers of people who were spokesmen in the party. We had 24 MEPs. We've had people on the Welsh Assembly, the London Assembly. We've had hundreds of councillors, and they've all worked very hard for the party. It's got a great manifesto. So the party is a lot more than one man, and that's why the party will continue. And the party's supporters understand this. They look in the manifesto, they think the policies make sense, and they support us.
Do you now put Nigel Farage into the category of the media elite?
Well, I think that his current success is, to some extent, based on his celebrity. I think that, that's a fair criticism, yes.
Because remember, this is a man who led your party for many, many years. He took your party to a great place. And as soon as Gerard Batten got involved with Tommy Robinson, and as soon as Gerard Batten, this is the words of Nigel Farage, by the way, not the media, started saying that Gerard Batten had some type of fixation with Tommy Robinson and discussing Islam and dragging UKIP in a direction of effectively being a sort of street activist party, surely that was the moment when the public turned. And that's not the media saying that. That's Nigel Farage, the man who led your party. So it's too easy for you to just slam the media over this.
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
In the 2017 general election, while Nigel was still a member of the party and Gerard Batten wasn't the leader, UKIP got about 2% in the general election. The reason for that was that the other parties promised Brexit. So a lot of people who were voting for Brexit thought, well, if we vote, let's say, Tory, we might get our Brexit. Okay, so and we sunk to 2% that general election. That was long before Gerard Batten became leader.
And Richard,
and to be honest, those years, between 2016 and 2018, to be honest, the vacuum in the party there was to some extent Nigel's fault. He left the party sort of in the lurch. He didn't leave a very successful, structure behind him, and therefore the party was a bit rudderless
and
during
Richard,
that
by the
time.
way, I know you support Tommy Robinson, but the facts are, in 2009, he was convicted of assaulting an off-duty police officer. He has convictions for mortgage fraud, as well as public order and drugs offences. So I'm just saying, is that the type of person you want to support?
Peter Mandelson has been a European Union commissioner, and he has a conviction for mortgage fraud.
I'm just saying, if that's the type of man,
I'm not saying that I approve of those
support
things at all. But I do also think that Tommy Robinson was more or less a political prisoner last summer in this country when Gerard Batten decided to actually stand up for someone who probably shouldn't have been. Well, I say probably shouldn't have been in prison. We know he shouldn't have been in prison because they released him, and he was wrongly imprisoned. So we know that Gerard Batten stood up for someone who shouldn't be in prison,
Richard,
and he was released.
I've given you lots of time to explain your position, so you cannot say that here on this show we don't give all sides of the political spectrum a voice.
Grateful to you for listening to me.